Hello, my name is George Waas, and I'm the District Deputy Grand Master of the 7th Masonic District. This presentation is on Freemasonry, Patriotism, and Americanism. February is significant because it is the month we celebrate the birth of two of our greatest presidents, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And since February 21st is officially recognized as President's Day, it is only fitting that we briefly consider the relationship between patriotism and Americanism, and because of our value system, Freemasonry as well. First, we need to set out what these words mean. Let's start with Freemasonry. While Masonry refers to actual builders of structures using stone and mortar, Freemasonry is a universal fraternity bringing together men who share a common system of morality that is veiled in allegory or abstract representation of ideals and beliefs that in turn are illustrated by symbols. As Masons build buildings, Freemasons build men of character, integrity, and principle. Patriotism is love of or devotion or loyalty to one's country. Americanism is patriotism to our country. Many of our founding fathers who carved our nation from the wilderness were Freemasons. That America was founded on the principles of Freemasonry, a belief in a supreme being, love of fellow man, devotion to family and friends, and on, is self-evident. You are most familiar with these principles. Patriotism is founded on great principles and virtues as well, those involving duties, responsibilities, and personal sacrifice that spring from a foundation of a strong moral code and born of human values. True patriotism goes beyond public celebrations such as parades and speech-making. It is revealed by how we think and, more importantly, how we act toward one another every single day. Of course, patriotism applies to love of country. An Englishman devoted to England is a patriot. The same for an Italian to Italy. However, if I were to choose a definition of patriotism as it applies to our country, Americanism, I would choose the words from the Declaration of Independence that say, "We hold self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness." My friends, I repeat that the authors of these words were Freemasons. That Freemasonry, patriotism, and Americanism go hand in hand is so obvious as to be beyond inquiry. Bringing the words patriotism and Americanism into the same sentence with Freemasonry is therefore easy to do, since the relationship springs from these words from the Declaration of Independence, written by Freemasons who forged the time-honored tenets, precepts, and principles of our ancient craft into our nation's collective conscience at birth. Freemasonry has always been an integral part of our nation's history. It was the Freemasons who carefully and cautiously cradled democracy in the first trying and eventful years of our history. And it is Freemasonry's fervent devotion to those same principles that forged our founding, that continue to drive our nation onto greater heights today and will continue to do so in the future. So while our fraternity is of ancient origin, its principles, tenets, and value system are as timely today as they were then. Remember, our nation is founded upon the principles, tenets, and beliefs of Freemasonry and not the other way around. Those who founded our country, as well as those who fought to preserve and protect it, were and are called patriots. Therefore, it can easily be said that patriotism, Americanism, is a basic core Masonic reality that carries with it the highest obligations to humankind and individual citizenship. obedience to law, respect for constitutional authority, and a recognition of the right of every human being to the enjoyment of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, these obligations come with corresponding duties, for every good Mason will be a good citizen and will promote and exemplify decency, civic responsibility, and public order. Masons have always placed patriotism, Americanism, above partisanship, to preserve and protect our free institutions, to maintain the honor and dignity of our country at home and abroad, and to assure that the lofty ideals of our homeland remain consistent with the principles of Freemasonry. Where there is a constitutional government that respects the rights of its citizens, Freemasonry will stand proudly in its support. Those who support the right to think, the right to speak, the right to worship in freedom and as conscience alone dictates, the right to peacefully assemble and to petition our government for redresses, will have Freemasons at their side. And so I conclude with the obvious. Freemasonry, patriotism, and Americanism share a common foundation. We are justly proud of our heritage because adherence to these principles, tenets, and beliefs is steeped both in common sense and decency and represent life lived to the highest ideal. You can't ask for more or expect more than that, and we should never expect anything less. Thank you.